Welcome to FutureCo. Those who are listening, we welcome you to our live stream where we share AI knowledge, leadership, and innovation with business leaders. Leaders who want to navigate the future of work with confidence in this slightly uncertain world of AI and changing technology. So, just a quick introduction. My name's Stuart Riddle. I run Connect Digital, a software agency that builds business apps largely AI powered. And those business apps, our aim with those business apps is to give you superpowers to help you work faster, do more with less. And we use AI and automation to do so. We are a team of curious innovators, I think is the best way to describe us. And we want to share our learnings today with you all. And we also want to learn from the experience of others, other practitioners and professionals who have gone before us and really help business leaders as they grapple with AI at scale in their organizations. So on the back of that, we launched what we call FutureCo, which is an initiative of Connect, and our mission is to help leaders combine those human elements of creativity with the precision of AI to do some amazing work. And we want them to do that so their teams can focus on doing higher value work and getting more out of their day. An interesting statistic in some recent FutureCo sessions, we ran some polls, and those polls told us that the majority, we're talking 70% plus of organizations, are still in the really early stage of AI adoption and operationalizing AI. So we want to try and shift that conversation from tools and from prompts into processes and guardrails and help CxOs lead their organizations through that change and help them give them tools to do so. So my guest today is James Hanley. He joins us from Sydney. Welcome, James. He's the
Thank you.
digital practice manager at Grey Pooksand. And I hope I got that pronunciation right.
Great
They
puck
are a
sand.
Pucksand, sorry.
Yep.
They're a national architecture and design firm. I'm just going to read you James's bio. As a CTO, technologist, and strategist, James combines strategic vision with technical expertise to propel organizations toward true digital transformation. James's work is underpinned by pairing technical know-how and soft skills. I love this bit to support people in an era shaped by exceptional technological advancements. So great description, James. Welcome, and
Thank you.
first up, congratulations on the new book, which you've
Oh,
recently. I see you've recently got some hard copies in your hand.
yeah, I did. Yeah, I just returned from holidays and had a nice little package waiting for me with some hard copies. So it's great to see that sort of come to fruition after a good 12 to 18 months of note taking, writing, rewriting, editing, and
Wow,
then on to sort of marketing.
nice. And
Yeah,
the title is "Remaining Human in the Age of Artificial Intelligence," and we want to spend a bit of time on that in a little bit.
sure.
But like as a polymath, I really kind of struggle even with the concept of focusing enough for long enough to write a book. So was the blood, sweat, and tears worth it?
Look, absolutely. Looking back at it now, it's obviously the first book I've ever published, and I sort of have an idea for a second one, and my wife is desperately trying to push me to take a bit of a break. But it's quite funny. I think you and I have caught up sort of once or twice, and having done somewhere in the vicinity of 50 to 60 panel talks and webinars and podcasts and stuff this year alone on I sort of have been surrounded by a lot of people that know even much more than myself. And I sort of was just furiously taking notes and reading web articles and stuff. And I sort of sat back a while ago and I sort of thought, there's definitely a book here somewhere.
Mm,
I think I spoke to a HR manager of a large firm here in Sydney a few months ago, and we sort of had this discussion around your IT managers and your technology sort of people in business got you through COVID, that they got everyone set up and running, and it sort of led us to have this discussion around, well, who's going to get us through the next wave of technological advancement? Like, who's going to be there when AI really starts to embed in businesses? And we both sort of said, well, yeah, the tech guys will be there, but the HR people are going to be critical, because it's
Yep.
it's all about how do you maintain those human qualities and those human relationships when things around us, technologically speaking, are advancing so quickly. Some of those human traits are going to become so much more important than they are even now, and they are quite important now when you're talking to people and hiring people. So yeah, I sort of was like, yeah, I think I'm on the right track here with the book. I need to dig into those soft skills and how emotional intelligence interfaces with artificial intelligence, and where humans will sort of sit in that narrative.
Mm. There was a YouGov study that came out earlier this year that you may have seen, and
Mm,
that surveyed thousands of Australians. And one of the, I guess, not startling, not unsurprising, but important aspects to that, or trends that was highlighted in that survey, was the growing number of younger Australians who are already using generative AI or tools like
yeah.
ChatGPT as part of their workday or part of their life. And
Mm,
I think the HR angle and helping business leaders prepare for that shift is a really important
yeah.
conversation to have. Um,
Absolutely.
the you know the growing number of Aussies who are using generative AI, sort of over
Mm,
50% who have used it use
yeah.
it for work. So
Yep.
HR teams, business leaders, executives need to upskill their teams. I think they need to have some AI fluency in their teams to be able to have
Yep.
to conduct interviews with AI as part of
Yeah.
that interview process, and then
Yeah.
align their back end processes and hiring process to deal with it. It's going to
Yeah.
be a conversation that you hear more of.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we actually, I have done some teaching on sort of emerging technologies in the architecture space at the University of Sydney this year, and I actually had a young kid come up to me and said, "Oh, look, I don't mean to offend you, but I actually just fed all of your presentation notes into a PDF summarizer that I built last week, because I just didn't
Yep.
want to attend a 4 hour lecture." And we've actually subsequently interviewed him, and he came to the
Yeah.
interview and he said, "Oh, look, just to let you know, like, I jumped onto your website, I took a few images of one of your what looks like sort of key projects. I built a little AI engine, and here is 20 different variants of that entire school that you guys designed." And yeah, some of our partners were just blown away that here is a young graduate coming out of architecture school, has that design thinking, has been taught that design thinking, but is so natively in a very emerging and fastly emerging technology such as AI.
It's such a different conversation to have in an interview process, or
Absolutely.
it's not even an interview
Yeah.
process. It's a
Mm.
demonstration of fluency and capability,
Yep.
in real time almost. So
Yeah.
very
Yep.
different process needed to deal with that. So
Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating. The average person goes through somewhere between 3 and 7 career changes,
Yep.
and I just wonder what that looks like. The next step looks like for the younger generations that are coming through. You know, they're
Yeah.
expecting sort of
Absolutely.
5 to 9 career
Yeah.
changes, and
Wow.
um, I think that'll be driven by tools like generative AI, where people explore and create and find a new pathway that they want to explore.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think it's a pretty exciting space.
Yeah.
Is
Absolutely.
that you? Have you gone through a number of career changes to land where you are, or tell us a bit about
Look,
that?
I actually haven't. So look, I've been in the industry, in the architecture and construction industry for 16 years now, and that was straight out of high school and TAFE. So I studied at college, and I originally wanted to start as a technician, and I didn't want to be an architect, but I knew I wanted to work with sort of buildings in the construction space, and I actually really enjoyed. Basically coordinating buildings, working out the architect has designed this and the services need to fit all of these services into the building. How is it going to work? And then I sort of became really good at the software, and just through evolution and learning on the job, I then sort of have worked my way through to where I am now, which is sort of that CTO, digital practice manager, where I sort of now take care of a team of BIM managers as well as an IT team. But it's funny. I've never there's so much disruption around us, and our industry in terms of architecture is just so ripe for innovation that it's never really crossed my mind to leave the industry.
Mm.
I just think there's so much to do here to get us up to speed. Like we were struggling, the industry was struggling with understanding data and managing data long before AI came around, and AI is just going to turn that on its head. So I think a lot of designers and architects out there might be thinking, well, my God, how do I deal with all of this technology that's happening? And I'm like, well, hands up, I'm here to help you. This is where I want to be. So no, I actually haven't gone through any career changes yet. I sort of
Yeah,
just work on
that's
things
good.
like being an author and stuff on the side.
Yeah, yeah, and you've gone deep in one field, so
Yeah, yep.
it's good. How did that kind of evolve over the last few years? Like, what was the first spark of interest in AI, and like, how did that happen?
Look, just pardon me. Just thinking about how a lot of these technologies prior to ChatGPT, which obviously opened up the world's eyes to the fact that AI has existed, right? I mean, prior to that, I sort of was thinking, well, this technology is here. When I drive on a toll road in Sydney, there is a machine learning model that takes a camera takes a photo of my license plate and then it direct debits my bank account for the toll. When I go and do a self checkout at Coles or Woolworths, I place my fresh fruit and vegetable on the scale, and there's a camera that understands that, hey, that looks like a capsicum, therefore it's a capsicum.
Mm.
So I was like, all of this technology is not visible to the general population. And then sort of ChatGPT came on board, and that really sort of started to spark interest around the world. But I'd always been interested in technology and sort of saying, well, how can we apply it to the architectural industry? Because we have to get better at what we do. We are we have, architects have a very ambiguous relationship with technology at the best of times. They were terrified to give up drafting boards and pencils,
Mm.
and then they were terrified to sort of leave CAD and AutoCAD behind and move to sort of 3D modeling software. And I think AI is just going to actually supercharge the next transition. So it's yeah, what sparked my interest was just there's all this technology out there that we interface with daily, but a lot of us don't really have an understanding of what it is and how powerful it is.
Yeah,
Especially
it's
when you
this level
think
of
about
abstraction, right? Where you kind of
yeah,
abstracted from the technology, and the tools make it really easy
yeah,
to use. So,
yeah,
so I've seen some of
definitely,
your stuff that you've generated in Runway,
yeah, yeah,
where
yep,
it's, taking a still rendering of a building and
yep,
throwing it at a tool that lets you really quickly create a walkthrough. I
yeah,
mean, that's
definitely,
you know, I guess in one way you can look at that and go, that's removing an animator's job,
yep.
but it's also helping you communicate a design vision a lot clearer, I would expect, with clients.
Absolutely, yeah. Because a lot of the time, like I've worked in architectural practices where we have teams of visualizers, and it's just meeting after meeting, the architects talking to the visualizer. No, I want the image to look a little bit more like this, or the video to transition like this. Well, that that there is a massive democratization of sort of skills and ability to learn these platforms to do your own work for yourself. It's not going to sure I'm sure there will be sort of the job losses that everyone talks about, but there's a huge opportunity here for a massive reskilling and upskilling
Mm.
of people in these areas.
Mm.
We still work with visualizers, but it's just the tools they use are changing. I mean, we're not seeing any job losses at the moment. It's just how we do what we do is changing, becoming more efficient in my mind.
Yeah. And
Mm.
what does a day in the life of James look like? Are you kind of embedded in cool tools all day, or is it sort of boots on the ground in the
It
weeds? Like,
depends
what does
on
it?
on what you classify as a cool tool. At the moment, I'm in PowerPoint and Excel, just going through budgets. But look, a lot of the time it is R&D to say, look, what is, for example, the runway stuff we were doing. I picked that up sort of 2 weeks ago and was like, let's just throw 3 images at runway and see what animation we can get out. And that's sort of all in sort of an hour or two. We've obviously built a lot of AI apps in house, so we're in that really fast sort of fail forward area. So I spend a bit of time between the fun R&D stuff, but a lot of time it's actually managing budgets, understanding what projects we have on, what do those projects require. An architectural project in Melbourne might have a need for Mid-Journey or some sort of image generation tool or workflow. So another project in Sydney might not need it. So it's actually understanding A day in the life of me is basically delivering the right technology and the right tools to the right staff at the right time, and
Yep.
having a team to help me support do that across about 150 architects nationally.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
The idea of failing forward and just sort of executing and experimenting, um, I think, is a critical one. Like
Mm,
we've built solutions that are AI powered and literally have gone down a particular rabbit hole or a pathway, thinking that
yep.
we're on the right track in that development phase of a
Hmm.
project where we're building a solution that is going to get AI in the hands of users with
Yep.
guardrails,
Yep.
and have had to back out and rebuild. And
Hmm.
you've got 6 or 8 weeks worth of work that you've had to
Yeah.
essentially retool and
Yep.
rethink and re-architect based on
Hmm.
either changing tools
Yep.
or um, or a better understanding of what we're dealing with, and the
Mm,
limitations of the platforms that are behind some of the tools that we're building. So it's an
yep.
interesting journey, but I think the message for business leaders and particularly project managers who
Hmm.
are looking at doing AI in their organizations and building solutions around them is that,
Yep.
like, you need to have that mindset. You need to have flexibility. You need
Hmm.
to adapt as you go, and as you
Absolutely.
kind of go through that journey of being better at AI and more mature with
Mm,
your adoption, there's this experimentation phase. But then as you
yep.
scale it out, you need to have that mindset as you build those
Yeah.
projects. You need to be able to,
Oh,
leadership needs to be
yeah.
flexible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You've got to be able to pivot really quickly, because
Mm,
we've done the same sort of thing. We sort of opened up. Look, we started playing around with Midjourney almost 2 years ago, when that sort of first came out, and we've been really. That's actually one of our day-to-day tools in our practice now, to the point where we actually use it on live submissions. Of
mm,
course, we actually do tell our clients that we're using AI. Obviously, ChatGPT's been around. We've been using sort of Bard and Perplexity and a few different tools, but we sort of moved really quickly into then, well, that's great. They're public platforms. There's obviously sort of data risks and ethical concerns around those platforms. How do we actually start to build platforms in house? And look, of course, I did 2 or 3 proof of concepts, built them, and then sort of thought, actually, you know what, it's not the right tool, or actually, the, the, the weeks that I spent building it, there'd been some new release that basically
mm.
captured exactly what we're doing. So it's got to be, you need to be very careful in sort of managing time, effort, and budget on that front. Um, as a lot of our partners sort of tell me, we want to be at the leading edge, not the bleeding edge.
Yep.
But at some point, you need to sort of fail a little bit to understand, well, hey, we're charting a course. There's going to be offshoots and rabbit holes that we go down from time to time, but we're actually all the better for that because it's going to clarify where we're trying to
Mm,
get to and what we're trying to
mm.
deliver to our staff and to our business.
Yeah, and then understanding those stepping stones from there
Yep.
into broader adoption, and how to
Yep.
bring those guardrails at scale, I think, is a really important step to make.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And look, I think adoption is a massive one. When some of these bigger platforms came out, like Midjourney, for example, I sort of looked at that and thought, wow, every designer is going to use this tomorrow. And here we are, sort of a year and a half later, and what we've actually seen is the opposite. We've actually seen a lot of architects saying, look, sorry, too busy. Like, I'm on 8 projects this week. I've got deadlines up to my neck. I actually just need to sit down with one of your tech specialists, give him a prompt, and work with him to help generate some imagery. So we're
Mm,
sort of seeing, like, yeah, that adoption journey is very different to what I actually expected it would be. In the fact that some people, a lot of people are aware of the platforms. Some people want to use them and explore. Other people are like, You know what? I just need help doing it. I want to work with someone that knows what they're doing,"
mm.
which equally is absolutely fine in our minds as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Good advice.
Mm.
On the just before we proceed, if you're on LinkedIn and you'd like a question answered by James, please feel free to interact and add those. We'll pick them up and deal with them as they come in. To the theme of your book, which is available on Amazon for anyone interested
Mm.
in purchasing a copy. You can
Yep.
find it on amazon.com.au. Reimagining human, sorry, remaining human in the age of AI is a guide to understanding ourselves and the traits that make us human, as well as understanding AI and how it is impacting our lives today and into the future. in a future so inexorably soaked in technology, characteristics such as creativity, empathy, and emotional intelligence will become more important than ever before. So, just to explore that a bit, James, and
Mm,
think about creativity and ethics and some of the conversations around that and how they can coexist in this world that's going to get increasingly saturated by
hmm
AI. We when we and this is probably some of the fear within some of the architects that you deal with, like
hmm
the longer we spend thinking about a problem or a design in your case,
Yep.
or something that you're writing, whatever creative exercise that you're involved in, the
Yes.
longer you think about it, the better the output. The more you write,
hmm
the clearer it becomes. You have more clarity, and that creative process
Mm,
is critical, I think, to us growing creatively.
yep.
And as you write a piece, you write a book, as you've done, the more time you spend, the more doors open up, the more
Yeah.
possibilities and options sort of open up in front of you, and that's
Mm,
creativity. But then you jump onto a tool like ChatGPT, you ask
yep.
and you get like this
Yeah.
instantaneous kind of feedback
Yep.
loop. And in some ways that may be bad, but in others, it's like that's opened up for me. It's opened up new avenues to explore, new creative possibilities
Mm.
that my small brain could never have thought of on its own.
Yeah.
So it's like it's this double-edged sword, right? It's like, well,
Yeah.
we've got this inbuilt spark of creativity and this inbuilt purpose unique to humans
Yes.
above all other animals, but you know, you've also got this tool that can really supercharge that and really bring
Mm.
those skills to the forefront, but in a different way. It's a very different experience, creative experience
Yeah.
than you sitting down with a blank sheet of paper and sitting out, in the park
hmm
and drawing something, for example.
Yes. Yep.
What's your take on that?
Look, my take on that is, and again, having been surrounded by architects for most of my life, creativity is not a linear exercise. It's messy. It's full of sort of exploration and offshoots into different areas. Whereas if you're working with an AI, it is literally input output, and there's no real at the moment you're just stuck in that sort of input output cycle. And there's no real way to sort of deviate off or offshoot from that and sort of look at different things or different ideas. So I think whilst I see an immense benefit of AI in that design space and in problem solving and creativity, that point of that, what I was trying to get to in the book is that it's just it's a tool. It's not going to replace creativity. It's not like AI is going to get AI will definitely progress, right? Let's not make any mistakes about that, and it will get much more intelligent. But it's never going to stop humans from being creative, and we're never going to stop relying on humans for their creativity. I think absolutely creativity, I think, is the cornerstone of human innovation and progress. So you can't simply just farm out those decisions and that process to machines 100%. And I think that's where a lot of people have been talking about this in circles that discuss AI. Like, it's that interface between humans and machines, right? It's how do you not be replaced by a machine or by an AI, but how do you work with it to extend your creative boundaries?
Mm,
You might sit there and sketch three or four different sketches, or you might even just do one sketch in a park, and then you could feed that into AI and say, give me seven variations of this. That there is not replacing your creativity, it's actually extending that boundary for you, and helping you sort of do a lot more in a lot less time.
mm,
It's become sort of that cliche that, yeah, look, it's going to sort of, everyone's talking about it's going to take the mundane task and automate it and that sort of stuff. And yeah, sure, that's true. But I think on those high level tasks that in the past have been solely the domain of humans, I absolutely think AI will add value there. But we've been really, really, I've been saying it till I'm almost blue in the face. Like, it's not about replacing an architect with an image generator. It is simply about expanding your creative horizons, to look at something that you might not have known. Because
mm,
creativity can also be a limiting exercise. In the case of an architect, we could be, let's say an architect in our business tomorrow gets a request for a proposal. Hey, we'd like a new hospital designed. and it's a competition. You've got 6 weeks. How many options can an architect come up with really, just with their own two hands and a piece of computer software in that 6 weeks? What if you were actually able to codify or use an AI agent that knew how to design a hospital and knew the best layout? You could talk to that AI and say, give me 100 different options. And now, based on the client requirements, tell me the best five. Based on the north aspect of the site, which ones are going to work. So it's absolutely about efficiency. It's not getting rid of that creativity spark from the human side of it.
Mm. So the kind of product manager within me responds to that and goes, how do you then capture a lot of the wisdom that's from those who have
Yeah.
gone before you, older architects, for
Yes.
example? Like,
Yeah.
how can you bottle that? And that's where the power of AI really can help
Yep.
new candidates, for example,
Yes.
younger architects who come into the practice. How can they access that wealth of
Mm.
information that's within all those older architects' minds?
Yep.
And we're not talking about bottling creativity in that sense. We're talking about
No.
bottling years of experience that somehow
Yeah.
you can extract from past
Yep.
projects.
Yeah,
So I
it's
imagine
that
that's
that
a real challenge.
experience and that knowledge, right? That is something I firmly believe a lot of the major architecture firms around Australia, if not the world, will be absolutely tackling that question as we speak. Um, we have an archive drive with every past project we've done. I mean, in Grey Park Sense case, we've been around for 33 years. We have hospital designs in either 3D models or PDFs sitting
Yeah.
somewhere in an archive drive that we did 10 years ago. There's
Yep.
so much knowledge in those drawings. Like, how do we get to that? A new architect, if you came and joined our business tomorrow, you might not even know that we did a hospital 10 years ago
Mm,
and we have a whole design sitting on an archive somewhere gathering dust. So it's about,
mm,
yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not about bottling it, but it's like, how do we leverage all of the data that has been created before us by architects that either still work for the company, have left the company and moved on? How do we get that access to that IP and that data to help us work so much more efficiently in the future?
mm. For CIOs or CTOs, I think it's really exploring that and seeing those pockets of information in your
Mhm.
organization, and then experiment and
Yep.
start to use smaller parts of that data set
Yep.
to really chat with, understand, explore, and build tools on top of to give your teams
Hmm.
access. So it
Yep.
doesn't have to be an incredibly big project. I don't think to start off.
No.
It can be small chunks, small problems in your
Yep.
business, or pockets of opportunity, and exploring those.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
With excuse me, with human qualities like empathy, intuition, they're inherently human traits
Mm.
that we know and love and explore and use every day. But do you think those kind of qualities are being impacted by AI, or how do you see them being impacted by AI?
Yeah, I think they are being impacted by AI, and I think they have been for actually a number of years. Um, look, because you and I are Australia based, we've obviously had some issues with major phone carriers the last few months, with networks going down. I mean, even if your internet goes down at home and you try and call a major phone provider, you're gonna get some sort of AI or roboticized voice, and it's incredibly hard to get to where you're going. So I think,
Mm,
I don't know, and it's been happening a lot, right? Sort of been in terms of offshoring customer support and these sorts of things. There's no empathy or intuition in that, right? You're sort of just talking with a set of rules to try and direct you, and it's incredibly frustrating. Like, if I'm at home and my internet goes down, I want to know as soon as possible when that's going to be back online so I can continue working. Like it does in this day and age, it absolutely affects our lives hour by hour. So I think we need to be careful because obviously customer support has been one of those areas where it's been largely touted that AI can just replace everyone. Um, and whilst, yes, that is factually true, is that actually the best course of action? For a large business, of course it is. It's going to save you money. All you need is a large language model and a set of rules. But for your customers, satisfaction is going to go right through the window. in terms of people aren't going to be satisfied with trying to get a hold of you. Like there are still people that want that human connection and want to talk to someone and say, hey, why am I having an issue with your service? So I think, yeah, I think there is a large focus that we need to, as a society, place on empathy and intuition. I mean, intuition
Mm.
comes back to sort of that, and you and I were just talking about sort of that architect that's been in the business for 30 years and he just intuitively knows how to design because he's done so many designs. Empathy, on the other hand, is, well, I don't know, when you're talking to your Google device at home, do you say thank you every time it answers you? Like, so there is, I don't know, you've got to, I've seen friends and they say thank you to try and teach their kids manners, which is
Yep.
quite a funny scenario. So
Mm.
we need to be careful about that empathy side of things, about we need to remember how to relate to other people. I do, and that again was another sort of idea behind the book was I've got a 17-month-old daughter, and I sort of wonder, like, growing up in a very digital native environment over the next 20 years, like, how is she going to be as an adult? Will she be comfortable answering a telephone call? Will she want to talk to people when there's so much technology around you? So I think empathy, we have to teach people those soft skills and focus on that equally as much as we do. We don't want to hamper the progress of AI and just say, no, we can't do it. We need to just stay human. We need to strike that harmony or that balance between, yeah, human relationships and also getting the best out of AI.
Yeah. Particularly when rolling it out to a business, it's pretty easy to
Definitely.
steamroll something out with the bottom
Yeah.
line in at the front of your mind, and it's like this
Yep.
is going to improve profitability, or it's going to increase our analysis of customer
Yep.
customer revenue.
Yeah.
But what about people? How are they reacting to it?
Yeah.
What's the kind of soft skills needed for change management? Don't
Yep.
underestimate the resistance of your teams at some point,
Yep. Yeah. You've got to think
and
about
keep that
company
in mind.
culture, right?
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
bring them on the journey, and
Yeah.
don't expect a particularly smooth ride like any change.
No. Yeah,
Mm,
no. Implementation is, and yeah, digital transformation is just not an easy, and it's an ongoing journey, right? Everyone thinks, oh, we can come in and digitally transform this company and set everything up perfectly in a few years. Look at the technology around us. That is, it's such a short-sighted view sometimes, right? When I speak to a few people that are leading those teams, saying, well, we just need to do this project and then we're good. Like, yeah, but you've got to have your eyes on what's next on the path,
mm,
and how you're taking that business on the journey because it never stops.
mm. Yeah. So the core fundamentals remain.
Mm,
It's not, you can have technology changing all around you, but if you've got a solid culture that's based on
yeah,
understanding and appreciating people and the value they bring to your business, then hopefully you
yep,
can blend those two and help them flourish.
yeah, absolutely.
Any practices or habits that you recommend teams think about when it comes to adopting AI with those concepts in mind of creativity and the human traits that we all have?
Yeah, look, it's and having speaking from experience, it comes back to what we were just sort of saying about taking people on a journey. You've got to include people in the AI development space. Okay, so you can't, a technology team can sit there and build the best AI, but if they haven't gone out and canvassed, it's sort of what you were talking about before in terms of product development, right? Like you can sit there and build a product, but if you haven't sort of actually spoken to who your end users are going to be and included them on the journey in development and said, well, we're building this platform. What would you like out of it? What do you think it should do? You need that diversity of thought. So you
Mm,
absolutely need to bring those people up and say, look, we're building a tool. This is what we believe. This is the problem we believe it can solve. What do you think? What are your opinions? Like, we need to hear from you. So I think it's, yeah, you need to make sure that, and I've done this before. Like, I've sort of built tools where I'm like, yeah, this is great. This is going to solve a problem, but the way it's used is completely off the
mm,
mark to how I thought it was going to be used.
yeah,
So you've got to have that diversity and bring people in and make sure that your development team has a bit of diversity as well. I know there's some crazy statistics out there around diversity of people of color and males and females in those AI development teams, and that's why we've seen a lot of these image models or image to text image platforms have crazy biases straight off the bat because I hate to say it, but a lot of these AI developers are just white guys.
Mm,
They don't know anything outside of what they, and it's not their fault. Like they're a product of their environment, their upbringing, their job. But without that diversity, you're going to run into problems very, very quickly.
yep. Yeah. Interesting angle. We'll explore
Mm,
that one. It's just back to your point about yeah, advice for teams. Like we like to think about it in a startup world,
yep,
where when you're creating a new product and you're a startup, yeah, you need to find what's called product market fit. And
yep,
the only way you find product market fit is by talking to your customers.
yeah,
In fact, you should talk to your customers way more than what you talk to
yep,
anyone else to understand their
yeah.
problems and think about
Agreed.
what you're solving. So if
Yep,
you can bring that mentality across into your teams and
yep,
in your organization,
yeah,
it's all about helping them be better at their jobs, which end of the day really kind of contributes to culture. So
mm, yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yep.
yeah, you raise an interesting point about ethics and biases, and
Mm,
I think it's worth touching on because it seems to me there's these different levels of responsibility when it comes to ethical AI development. You've
yep,
got government level. You know, we've
yep,
seen recently Australia's sort of signed off
yeah,
on the AI guidelines, along
yep,
with 28, 21 other countries, which is great. Which I
mm,
think goes some way to addressing that at a government level, but there's detail needed from government. And then you've got
yep,
organizational level responsibilities, the guardrails you need to put in place. And then you've
yep,
got individual responsibility, like as citizens, we need to have, you know,
mm,
and think about when AI is appropriate, if the results from our interactions with AI is useful or not, and if
mm,
there's biases in that, and do our due diligence on things that require it. So,
yeah.
any insights or advice for organisations around ethics?
Yeah, look, I think it's a tricky one. I think and again, speaking from personal experience, we sort of went really open in terms of AI adoption. We sort of said, hey, no policy, no framework, like these platforms have been released, jump in. And then we had to sort of backtrack pretty quickly. And I'm sure you've seen in the news, like there are large companies out there that have outright banned access to certain platforms. So I
Mm,
think if you're developing tools in house, you've got to work with your business team and your leaders to adopt ethical guidelines and frameworks. I think implementing those guidelines and frameworks can prioritize our human values and morals in the development of AI as well as its use. I think we've got to think about when we're utilizing these sort of technologies, we've got to have checks and balances in place, okay? Because people are, I mean, if you look at how quickly you can go on to ChatGPT and develop your own GPT for public use, like a lot of that computational sort of setup is done by OpenAI, but you've developed it, your name is on that. So you've got to be really careful about what you're doing. I think a lot of companies at the moment have just been they've almost thrown business strategy out the window with
mm,
this shiny new object that's just landed on their desk. And they're actually almost they've almost rewritten or tried to rewrite their strategy overnight because AI has just exploded into mainstream. And I think that's probably catching a few businesses out. So I would say, look, definitely be exploring AI and look at how it can affect your business. It's going to affect your business in multiple ways, from your back of house finance teams and marketing teams right through to your customer facing staff. But you've got to get to grips with your reputational and brand damage if something goes wrong. So you absolutely need to think about what guardrails have we got in place. You need to do serious testing of that platform before that goes live. You need to look at how it might interface with your guidelines or with your frameworks. If you've got those in place, you need to have those in place first. In reality,
mm,
um, what does Gen AI mean to our business? How do we use it? How do we not use it? How do we protect our information? How do we protect our data? How do we protect the information of our customers? It's not just our business, it's also, we've seen it before where there's examples floating around. Well, someone sent me a nasty email, chat GPT, here it is, can you please write a response? And we've seen people copy an email into ChatGPT with the person's name that sent it, their company
yeah,
signature. Like you're affecting
sensitive
the
private
data in, and
information.
yeah, you are. unknowingly maybe affecting the data anonymity of that person.
Mm,
I think we've only just learned about the pitfalls and the absolutely negative impacts of social media that have been around for what 10, 15 years. Like we completely missed the boat on how bad Instagram and Facebook and those sorts of platforms are for young kids. Whereas AI, we are just full steam ahead. How do we make
mm,
money? And we're not thinking about the larger impacts. So I
yeah,
think, yeah, get your policy and your frameworks in place, understand what it means to your business and what the risks are, and just be really careful in the development. Don't rush it. Just test it and make sure that it's fit for purpose before it goes any further. And have your development team on hand if something does go wrong.
mm,
If a customer comes back with bad feedback.
mm. We have a question from Jimmy. Thanks, James, for that question. That's for that answer. That's a really good answer to that question. But Jimmy says, how can current university students use AI effectively without downplaying the role of education? Good one for James.
Yeah, look, I think a lot of the university students I've sort of lectured and had the pleasure of sort of going in and talking to are exploring AI, they're using AI, but I think it's also for the education department to get to grips with as well. So it's not I wouldn't think so much about downplaying the role of education. I think just last week, I think I posted on LinkedIn that the Department of Education have released their AI framework that aligns with the Australian governmental policy as well. So this is a huge step forward to saying, hey, we realise AI is here and it is absolutely already impacting education. How do we set our students up and how do we set our teachers up for success? But look, whatever you might be studying at university, AI is absolutely going to have an impact in that area. So, look, my advice would be like, don't shy away from it. Everyone I talk to, I'm sort of trying to tell them just be productively curious. Don't sort of forget about the job and the role you've got to do right now today, but absolutely understand how AI is going to impact it. Because if you're not learning AI now, you're going to be forced to learn it and forced to work with it in the future. So just it's just another tool and another platform to understand and learn, whether you are studying at university or whether you're out in the workforce. And I think further to that as well, I think if you are using AI anywhere, right, workforce or education, in our policy in house, there is absolutely a clause that says, yes, you can use it, but you've got to make it your own. Like, please, I got to stress, please don't be lazy enough just to copy and paste stuff out of ChatGPT or some sort of platform, because there's no shortage of horrific stories floating around, like obviously the lawyer in New York that asked for some case studies from ChatGPT and they were all false. So
Mm,
you've got to that text that those platforms returns is entirely sort of robotic in nature if you read it. So you've got to put your own prose on there, your own sort of you've got to infuse it with a bit of humanity, right? So
yeah.
use it as a tool, but don't use it as an absolute end of the road. This is all I'm going to use.
Mm. I call it vanilla content. It's like
Yeah,
anyone can use
great.
it, right? Like there's
Yep,
no,
it's the base
it's
minimum.
just
It's the baseline, right? Take
bare
that and
bones.
build
Yeah,
on it. Always got to
yeah.
build on it.
Or if you're starting with a blank page and you need inspiration or need an idea to
Yep.
get going, use it for that.
Yeah.
It's like
Yep.
kickstart something. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I absolutely that's how I use it to write a business case. I'm like, just generate me 400 words here or 300 words, and then
Mm.
that sort of sparks my creativity, and it puts me on a roll to then I end up rewriting most of it anyway, which is great.
Mm. Yeah. Give me five dot points to
Yeah,
flesh
to
out.
start me off. Yep,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that can be in kind of the visual as well as the written word, right? It can be a thought starter
exactly.
or an idea sparker.
Yep, yep.
But to me,
Yeah,
that's
that's
how you
actually
can really use it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. We've going to sort of that image creation, we've seen image creation AIs used as the very first tool in the workflow to say, and especially for me, being a not a creative person at all, I've got an idea, put a few words in, there's an image. On the flip side, though, we've actually seen it used much further down the track where we've actually got a design or we've got an image. Hey, actually, what if it looked like this? Or can you give me a variant? So, yeah, you can actually use it at various points in that sort of process to get bit more creativity or a bit more idea about what you're designing or trying to deliver.
Mm, mm. Good advice. Just want to flip back into business mode and think
Mm,
about how we can help business leaders, CFOs, CEOs, COOs,
hmm
CMOs. There's all those, as you said, all those fields are being impacted, or
yeah.
their teams are being impacted by AI. But like, let's explore kind of what strategy. You actually mentioned a really good point about how strategy's gone out the window, and I think the first
Mm,
step in all this is just going, how does this fit, or how does this
yeah.
support our business strategy?
hmm
If we've got a particular focus, a strategic imperative, like how does AI
yeah.
support that? That's kind of step number
Yeah.
one. But outside of that, what kind of considerations do you think CXOs should be thinking about when it comes to AI at scale and next steps in their AI journey?
Yeah, look, I think in terms of the C-suite understanding how AI is going to be implemented or fit into their strategy, you've got to reverse engineer it. Like you've got to basically say, what are we trying to achieve, and how can AI actually help that? Because we've a lot of these companies, and we're the same. We've got a strategy in place. We do 3 year strategies, and we're actually right now writing our next one for the next 3 years. And obviously, like a lot of businesses, AI is obviously a large sort of touch point in that strategy. And we're saying, hey, there is still so much to do, but AI is going to feed into that. It's not going to be the only point in our strategy. It is going to be one of a number of points. So I would say don't get distracted or don't get seduced by the technology. There is still a lot that it can't do and can't do well. Like some people will turn around and tell you, well, like some of the AIs are incredibly dumb at times because they can't work out text or they can't work out images or they can't deliver certain things. So I think just be really balanced in your approach to say, look, it's a tool. There's a cost associated with it. What's it trying to achieve for our business? How can we use it? You've got to ask the questions and do a bit of a deep dive. Because, yeah, as I said, like a lot of people have just shoved their strategy on a shelf and they're just diving into exploration mode and getting sidetracked on stuff and building things that don't work or building platforms that are half baked and only solve part of a problem. So you need to treat AI implementation as an absolute project, have a team on it, have a budget, but understand what you're ultimately trying to achieve and how it's going to actually set your business up or support your business.
Mm.
Because a lot of
And
people out there, I
have
think,
a minimum. Sorry, keep
yeah.
going.
Oh no,
You-
what I was going to say is I think a lot of people out there have sort of just dived into it so quickly, but there's no real strategy around what they're trying to achieve with it.
mm,
And I think also there's that I mean every business is in a competitive market, right? So there's probably everyone's looking over their shoulders saying, well, I'm sure our competitors are doing it, so we better keep going. Stick to your strategy, stick to your guns. Like your business has survived up until now, and that's fine, and it will continue to survive. But it will continue to survive as long as you have a robust strategy and key deliverables around implementing AI.
mm,
And obviously, I think also, yeah, at the moment, it might be a bit of a contentious point, but maybe just also be cognizant that you don't need to AI everything. Like some things are actually working okay as they are. Like don't feel like you need to go back and just re-examine the entire business. Of course, go back and look at sort of where it can be impacted, but don't feel like you need to sort of stop everything and rebuild from the ground up. Like that, it's not alarm bells just yet.
mm, mm. And there's some frameworks. We use some frameworks that help you evaluate a process or a problem
hmm
in a business and just
Yeah,
understand if AI is suitable to help solve that problem,
yeah,
and B, what are the compliance or legal or policy
yeah,
decisions or parts of that process
yeah,
that need to be thought about. And
yeah,
so it's kind of digging into your problem areas and understanding
yeah,
those with your strategy in
yeah,
mind, and then kind of pulling them apart, as you say, reverse engineering them and go, how is AI suitable for this, and how can
yeah,
we start to
yeah.
experiment to help our teams with that particular process? But
Definitely, yeah.
not just a
And
simple, kind of straightforward evaluation.
no, and it goes back to what you were saying before. Like you need to talk to other teams. Like how is it like for me? how's it going to affect my marketing team? How's it going to
mm,
affect my architects and technicians? How's it going to affect my partners? How are they going out and winning work when everyone's talking about AI? My finance team, you've got to talk to all these people. You can't just sit there and write a strategy behind closed doors because it is just a point in time. You've got to talk to people that are actually ultimately going to be affected by these tools as your
mm,
colleagues and offsiders.
mm. Yeah, very good. And I think the sort of ethical integration of AI is the big one that leaders need to think
Mm,
about. But there needs to
yeah,
be fluency at that level, at the
yeah,
bare minimum,
yep,
because the C-suite needs to understand what they're dealing with, understand the
yep,
opportunity, and also the risks. But in my
mm,
opinion, the opportunity far outweighs the risks, and
yep,
it's about moving forward with that in mind.
mm,
And I think leading with confidence, but knowing
yes,
that it's going to be a journey, and there's
yeah,
going to be some ups and downs along the way, and um, setting the scene for your teams that sit underneath you to really kind of
yes,
drive that through the business and give them the guardrails to do so.
yeah,
So it's certainly an interesting era that we live in. It's fast moving and
yeah.
yeah, lots to think about, but it's a journey and we're all on
Oh,
it.
absolutely. Yeah, and yeah, you pointed out before, right? It's implementation and adoption and change management. Change management is always a bumpy ride. You have got your forward thinkers in the business that are probably the ones driving this sort of change, but you also have, and you got to love them. You've got the laggards and the luddites that sort of don't want to change,
Mm,
but that journey means you need to take every single one of those people on that journey. You cannot leave anyone behind because that's when your implementation is going to fall over. So your
yep.
strategy also has to be very mindful of that as well. But I think, yeah, I really like what you say about leading with confidence, and also that you the benefits far outweigh the risks. I don't think you can afford to stand still on this. But then, having said that, I don't mean that you need to move at breakneck speed and throw everything else out the window um,
Mm,
to implement it.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Very good. Good advice. We've covered a bit of territory today, James. I think I think there's a lot we could explore further. So maybe another
Yeah,
session in future if you're up for it.
yeah,
Would
always.
be really good. Do a
Yeah,
deep dive into
definitely.
a couple of areas would be useful, I think, for people. But well, yeah, if anyone's got any feedback on any of those topics that they'd like us to delve into a bit deeper, love to hear it. So um, just to close off, James, kind of top pieces of practical advice. Like, what are your top three to give C-suite business leaders when they're
Yep.
thinking about next steps with AI? Like, if they're just starting out on their journey, they're kind of in this emerging phase where they
Hmm.
understand the potential or see the potential,
Yep.
don't really know how to kick it off. What's your top
Yep.
three pieces of advice?
Geez, top three. Limit. I've got to limit it to three.
Yeah,
Look, I suppose
constraints
my
breed creativity.
look, my first one, and I always sort of say is be if you're already kicking it off, like be productively curious. Be very careful or understand that it's a very fast moving environment. A platform that you might commit to today can easily be superseded tomorrow by a new development. Um, think about the risks of basically public AI versus private AI. So think about what platforms you're actually exploring. If you, I think all businesses and all C-suite leaders will definitely, and if they're not, they should be looking at how they develop in-house apps. Um, Public AI is absolutely great to get you on board and get your understanding, but private AI is where you will get the efficiency and make the money or make the profit, and make your business more efficient. So absolutely explore your private AI uses. Definitely do some reading around, even at government level, the AI policies, because they're a starting point. They will start to filter down and they will start to inform regulations in your industry. It's only a matter of time. So absolutely do some reading on what policies are out there at the moment. If you haven't already, my sort of third piece would be absolutely get an AI policy and a framework, just a use policy implemented into your business. We have seen it time and time again, and I'm talking about internally but externally as well, about some pretty cautionary tales of using public AI. Those public AI platforms, whatever you're putting in there, don't be don't have the wool over your eyes. They will absolutely use that data to train their models. So just have a use case and a policy and a framework in house on how to use AI, whether it's private or public.
Mm.
I think they would be my top two or three.
Top two or three. There's more,
Yeah,
which we can probably unpack at some point. So
yeah.
very useful. Thanks, James. I'm sure our listeners have got lots of value from that, and hopefully, it's given them some confidence to take that next step and build those three into their business going forward. So that's a wrap. We're going to leave it there. Thanks very much for joining us, James. Appreciate your wisdom
No
and
worries.
experience that you've taken us through today. Um,
Thank you.
and we'd love you to subscribe at future.knkt.com.au if you'd like more AI knowledge, innovation, and experience. We write regularly on the subject and are planning to produce more of these. So love to have you join us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks very much.